because of the meeting. Is the flexible payment slide is visible? Yeah, thank you. So next is design of flexible payment. Actually, there are other methods like some empirical, semi-empirical, and even some other theoretical methods are also there to design the flexible payment. So here what I'm going to tell you is only based on IRC. So what are the guidelines? Actually, this IRC 37, it's not in like IS code standard. It's a guidelines which will give you, which will ease you the design process of flexible payment. Okay, these are the guidelines to that. This is a design of flexible payment. First is of that's IRC 37. So flexible payment you have this I've already explained. So you have the different layers in flexible payment like sub-base, subgrade, sub-base, base course and surface course. In that subgrade itself can be natural formation. Natural formation, what is existing? What is there actually? That's natural. If you are compacting it or some doing some stabilization at a process, that also can be, you can do it for the subgrade. Okay. Then in rigid payment you have natural formation or subgrade, subbase, or it can be a base course also below that, then your concrete slab. So a typical load distribution is given here. The load, how the pressure or how the load is distributed to the lower layers. If in case of flexible payment, its effect, we have seen that its effect is felt to a shorter radius, but the depth is more. Okay. But in case of wheel load, you can see that as these are concrete slab, its effect is to a wider area. So there's a quite variation between the load distribution pattern in this flexible and rigid payment. So because in flexible it's through the grain to grain transfer, no, through the point of contact area, right? So your payment consists of subgrade or stabilized subgrade, then subbase. Again in subbase also it can be cemented and unbound. Unbound means these are granular subbase pores. It's not bounded. It's not that the load transfer will be only through the point of contact of the aggregates, not through the bonding. Say if you have cement or say concrete, the bonding matters. Okay, so the subbase, you can mix the subbase also with cement stabilized subbase, or base course also can be there. Those stabilized bases are called bounded. So apart from the load transfer through the point of contact, it's through the bonding between the that also matters in this. So your subbase either can be cemented or unbounded granular material. Again, base course also can be cemented and unbounded. Again, it's again a granular material. Then aggregate interlayer for cemented base or a semi-layer, semi-absorbable membrane interface. Semi-absorbable membrane interface is a semi. Why you are providing a, say suppose if you have a base layer, a cemented base layer or cement stabilized base layer, you know that in cement in concrete layers, shrinkage cracks can occur. Even though whatever the curing process you are doing, sometimes the shrinkage cracks can occur in the cemented layer. As these layers are flexible pavement, flexible, what's the basic definition? Whatever the deformation it's there in the lower layers, it will get reflected in the upper layers because of its flexibility. Because of this property, if any crack or any defect if there in the cemented layer, it will get reflected in that above bituminous layer also. Okay. To avoid that, you can have a thin layer of aggregate, or you can provide a membrane layer, membrane interface layer, semi-absorbable membrane interface layer can be provided such that even though some cracks is there in the cemented base, it won't get reflected in the bituminous layer. This is needed if you are providing a cemented base or sub-base. Otherwise, you can directly, you will have the granular base course like WBM or WMM. Above that you can have your bituminous layer. Okay. So the failure criteria. This IRC design, it's based on the failure criteria. One is rutting and other is fatigue. So its design is based on these two criteria. So it's designed based on the mechanistic empirical or its performance. It's based on the rutting failure and the fatigue failure. So rutting means rutting. So what do you mean by rutting? Rutting is the failure or the depressions that is occurring on the pavement on the wheel path. Whenever a vehicle is running only on the where the wheel is going, that path alone you can see some depressions. Even in good national highways also you can see this. Okay, depressions at any point is different, but depressions which is parallel to the center line, which is along the wheel path, is called rutting. It will be parallel for quite a long time. Okay, so this rutting failure is due to the build-up of excessive compressive strain at the top of the subgrade layer. Okay. So whenever it, as per IRC, the pavement is considered fail if it exhibits a rut depth of 20 mm. If the depth of the rut is more than 20 mm or 2 cm, then you can tell that the pavement is fail. So fatigue means this, due to fatigue cracks will occur. Fatigue cracking means if you are applying the load continuously for many times or due to the repeated application of wheel loads, cracks will occur. That is called fatigue. Cracks can occur due to many cases. No, if you due to shrinkage, due to temperature variations, then due to or any other way, or due to moisture variation, the cracks can occur. But if it is due to the repeated application of load, then it's called fatigue cracking. Repeated application means even though the load coming is very less, say suppose only when very less load, say only 10 or say 5 ton is only coming, it's not quite high, it's not quite heavy, right? But this 5 tons, if it is applied for 10 times, there might not be any damage. But again, if you are applying this for if you are applying this for 100 or 1000 times, sometimes damage can occur. Okay, that is fatigue cracking. So even though the load is less, if you are repeatedly applying for many times, again I am in the class. If you repeated due to repeated application, then the cracks can occur. That is called fatigue cracking. Why this is important here is in highways, if you're taking, there are many vehicles are there, 2000 or 5000 vehicles are there, which is running daily. So the repetition is more here. That's why you're checking for the fatigue cracking here. And payment is considered fail if 20% of the surface has cracked out of the total. If the 20% of the surface cracks, then it's declared that it's seen that the payment is failed. Okay. So in mechanistic method of payment design, so its general concept is you have to assume a pavement configuration. Configuration means you have to assume like what's the thickness of subbase. It's not a direct formula where you are equating something, you are getting the total thickness of the pavement. No, you have to assume some thickness and you're checking whether the whatever the thickness what you have assumed is safe with respect to the load. Okay, so that's a basic principle. So assume pavement configuration, find the expected number of repetitions of standard axle on design lane from traffic analysis. We have to count the traffic volume steady and project the traffic. It's not for the current one. Always you have to say if you're designing the road for 10 years, you have to foresee or project the traffic for 10 years to get the, because now only say 5,000 vehicles will be there on the same road. Say after 10 years and all, it can be 7,000, 8,000. So what? So how? So you have to find what is the projected traffic. Okay. Then compute the allowable number of repetitions of standard axle using distress models, limited strain. So how big to restrict this distress or to rutting or to restrict the fatigue, what is the number of, what is the allowable number of repetitions? Okay, so that the rutting or it won't cause a rutting or fatigue cracking based on the failure criteria and reliability. I'll tell you the reliability can be 80 or 90% depending on the category of the road and how important it is. So next one is compute the pavement response using structural model. You have to find what is the actual strain for that for the sections or the pavement cross section what you have assumed. Okay, this you will get giving the material properties and the axle load. If it satisfies, if your assumed pavement configuration satisfies this, then you can assume. Otherwise, you have to change the pavement configuration, or even you can change the material properties also. Maybe say suppose I don't want my pavement to raise it or increase the thickness beyond a limit. I don't want my pavement to increase, to have a more thickened section. So that what you can do, you use some different material to which will give a E material. So if you have 150 centimeter of subbase, if you are using, instead what you can use, like instead you can use a lesser thickness of cementitious subbase, so that the thickness will be reduced, but you require like additional material cost must be high because of the cement and all you are using. Okay, so either you change the thickness or change the materials what you are using in the pavement to satisfy the design traffic. So traffic, so let us take the traffic first. So traffic in terms of the cumulative number of standard axles, 80 kilonewton, that's a standard axle, 80 kilonewton. Standard axle means single axle with dual wheels on both sides. The weight of 80 kilonewton is taken as the standard one. Okay. So you have to calculate, you have to find all the axle loads in terms of this. If some axle is there where you have tandem axle, so convert that into equivalent standard axle. For that you have to know the axle load spectrum data are required, where cementitious bases are used for evaluating the fatigue damage of such bases for heavy. As axle load spectrum, you have to know what is the axle load of each of the vehicles flying over the particular road. Then find if you are planned, if like the such road have heavy traffic, then you can go for cementitious bases and all. And assessment of the present day average traffic should be on 7 days 24-hour count you have to take. So how to find the traffic? Well, it's not for one day. It's because the traffic on Monday and Sunday is different, or Saturday it's different. So it's not same. Maybe in weekdays or weekend it is different. So you have to take for continuously, you have to take the count for 7 days for 24-hour count should be taken. If stage construction is adopted, thickness of the granular layer should be provided for the full design period. Stage construction means, say suppose now actually in a particular, as an example, a particular road, only 2000 vehicles are there. I told you it should be designed for the future. But future you're expecting like 5000 vehicles. But now only 2000 vehicles are there. But the current fund what you have is very less. Right. So as for flexible payment, what you can do is you can design the payment for 1000, only the top layer. Okay. Because you can't remove the granular layer again and again. So what you do, you give the full thickness for the granular layer, like subbase and base should be for that 5000 projected traffic. But the bituminous layer can be for 2000 for the time being. But later stage, say if it is for after 5 or 10 years, it can be increased to what is required for 5000. Got it? Say if initially it requires only 60 thickness, then later if it warrants 100, you can provide that additional 40 in later stage. That is possible only in flexible payment, not possible in rigid payment. If the total thickness of the cement concrete is 25 and you can't provide 20 and 5 later, it's not possible. But for the because of the flexible payment, stage construction is possible. But in that also keep in mind that the granular layer, it should be for the full design period. For the 10 years, whatever you are projecting, it should be done for that. Only the top layers you can do the overlay and all. Okay. So design traffic, the following information is needed for estimating the design traffic, like initial traffic after construction in terms of the number of commercial vehicles per day, that's called CVPD. Commercial vehicles per day means if the weight of the commercial vehicles is more than it is more than 3 tons, that alone is considered for the design. One second. Okay. So what is the initial traffic after construction? After construction means if the road construction is not to be done in a month or a year. No, it will take sometimes 2 years and also 2 to 3 years and all. It may take even more than that nowadays. So after 2 years, including the construction period, after constructing the road, what's the traffic? Then traffic growth rate during the design life in percentage, where the traffic growth rate is like 5%, 7%, how much, what's the increment in traffic. Then design life in number of years, whether you're designing for 10 years, 15 or whatever it is. Then spectrum of axle loads. Spectrum of axle loads means if you have like different wheels I mentioned. One second. So the design life for 10 or 15 years, what it is, it has to be specified. Then spectrum of axle loads. No, how many single axle, single wheel, single axle with dual wheels, double axle. Then that's tandem, tridem axle. It's there, that should be found out. Vehicle damage factor, I'll explain. Then distribution of commercial traffic over the carriage. Vehicle damage factor is if you have the standard axle, what is the equivalency, how much it should be multiplied with some factor so that you can make up for the current traffic. Then distribution of commercial traffic over the carriageway, I just mentioned to you about the transverse distribution, whether it's a single lane road, double lane road. Are you considering the full 100% of the vehicle, or only 50 or 75? So the distribution of commercial traffic is based on that. So firstly, traffic growth rate. So present day traffic, it has to be projected for the end of the design life at growth rate of R, which is estimated. Either it can be based on past trends of traffic growth. Okay, for the past trend means, say if you have the data for the past 10 or 20 years, you can just check it how the traffic is at varying over the years. That is one method. Other one is demand elasticity of the traffic with respect to macroeconomic parameters like GDP or STP of the country and expected land use demand due to specific developments and changes likely to take place during design life. Okay, so either this traffic growth rates, it can be based on the past trends. So if you know the data, otherwise based on the general GDP of the GDP or STP, either with the country or with that particular state, can be designed. Or other one is, say, you know that the industry, how it is progressing, what is the development of that. Proportionately, you can take the traffic growth also, like that, some other mapping. If neither of this is available, then as per IRC 37, the traffic growth rate of 5% is considered for the design. If you don't have the past trends or if you haven't got any other data, then it can be taken or assumed as 5% for the design. Design life. Okay, so design life, it's defined in terms of the cumulative number of standard axles in million MSA that can be carried before a major strengthening or rehabilitation or capacity augmentation of the pavement is necessary. Suppose why it is called this major strengthening or rehabilitation means, you might have seen like after say 10 years or 15 years, some repair works might be done on the roads. Okay, if that repair work is just in thin overlay, it won't be considered as the major change. Suppose if you're doing the major strengthening or you're rehabilitating the pavement, in that case your age starts from that. Okay, then whenever you are doing any rehabilitation, the age is 0. After that only your age start. Otherwise, some for minor repairs and all, the age is same. So the payments for national highways and state highways should be designed for a minimum life of 15 years. For expressways and urban roads, it should be designed for a life of 20 years. For other categories of roads, a design life of 10 to 15 years may be adopted. Okay, so for NH and SH, that's for national highways and state highways, minimum life is 15 years. For expressways and urban roads, it is for 20 years. And for other categories of roads, design life of 10 to 15 years may be adopted. So vehicle damage factor. So vehicle damage factor means, so it is defined as the equivalent number of standard axles per commercial vehicles. Okay. So the vehicle damage factor VDF, it's a multiplier to convert the number of commercial vehicles of different axle loads and axle configuration into a number of repetitions of standard axle load of magnitude 80 kilonewton. So what it meant is, you have the standard axle. So how much for other type of axle? So what is that multiplier factor? It should be done so that it can be equivalent to that. Okay, so it's a multiplier to convert the number of commercial vehicles of any axle, different axle load and any axle configuration to the repetition of the magnitude 80 kilonewton. And the VDF in the estimation of some guidelines are given And in case of cemented base, and the cumulative damage principle is used for determining the fatigue life of, I'll tell you this if you have cemented base. So vehicle type, you have steering axle. No, if you have different axle like steering and the back axle, it should be taken separately. It's not like a truck you are taking together those three axles. No, it is taken as separately. No, so you have single axle with single wheel, single axle, dual, tandem, tridem, etc. So the load equivalency factor, the equation for computing the equivalency factor is, if it is a single axle with single wheel on either side, its axle load into whatever the axle load you are getting divided by 65 raised to 4. This raised to 4. This is that for axle. This is the way you have to find the vehicle damage factor. If it's for single axle with dual wheels on either side, its axle load in kilo, whatever the axle it's obtained, divided by 80 to the power 5. Okay, for tandem axle with dual wheels on either side, it is axle load by 148 raised to 4. Tridem axle with dual wheels on either side, this is axle load by 224 raised to 4. Okay. This is the way you have to take the axle load survey. Axle load survey. So for each axle, it has to be noted. So the truck is above the wheel pads. Okay. So this from this wheel pad, you can see a cable which is connected to this. So you can read the weight here. So it can be 4.65 tons is the weight of this axle. And similarly, for this, you have to find the rear axle also should be separately you have to find. See, suppose if it is not possible, because it's very tedious to take the axle load survey, you think it's a national highway, you have to stop the vehicle and you have to find the axle load. Suppose if it is not possible to find or measure the axle load, it can be IRC as suggested if the traffic volume is between 0 to 150 and if your road is in a plain or a rolling terrain condition, take the VDF value as 1.5. Okay, if it is hilly terrain, take it as 0.5. The traffic is 150 to 1500 commercial vehicles per day. Then the in plain or rolling terrain 3.5 and in hilly terrain 1.5. And if the traffic is greater than 1500, in plain or rolling terrain it's 4.5 and in hilly terrain it's 2.5. Okay, then that's about the VDF. Then distribution of traffic. Told you if it is a single lane road, you have to take the total number of commercial vehicles, whatever you're counting on that particular road, the total number of commercial vehicles should be considered for the design. If it is a two-lane single carriageway, okay, two-lane single carriageway, in that case, you have to take 75% of total number of commercial vehicles in both directions. If it is a four-lane single carriageway, then it's 40% of the total number of commercial vehicles in both directions. Dual carriageway means you have seen like you'll have two lanes on one side, other side you will have two lanes, but in between you will have median, some separation will be there. Okay, if that's called dual carriage, when you have separation, four lanes will be there, two lanes will be segregated or separated by a median in between. So this for dual carriageway roads, it can be, it's taken as 75% of total number of commercial vehicles in each direction. In each direction, what is the 75% of that is taken for the design. Okay, this I'll explain next class. This is the formula which you have to use to find the cumulative number of standard axle. Okay, from the initial traffic, then from the lane distribution factor, vehicle damage factor, design life, annual growth rate, you can find the number of cumulative standard axles. Okay, million standard axles can be found out from this, and your further design or fatigue for or rutting model, you have to use this traffic. Okay. Any doubt?